I almost forgot for a moment. Like, I just get the pleasure of kind of chatting to you,
Mm-hmm.
whereas you've got like all the cogs like spinning behind the
I'm here
behind
like
the scenes.
juggling,
So.
like, what's the question? Where's the stuff?
Yeah. Is my
Has
thing filming?
Discord crashed or whatever? But it is
Yeah.
going absolutely fine so far. That is perfect.
Cool.
Welcome to the second episode of what we're now calling Role Diversity.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a guest. I'm happy to go in nice and early so that if I can get in, and then I can be like blown away by everybody else. I get to watch on thinking I've done my bit. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you won't get blown away. Yours is going to be the best or second best episode that we've ever done. We are talking to hobbyists from around the globe who are into Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop. Anyone who isn't in the sort of dominant majority demographic of the people who do this hobby. Not that we don't think that white men have a lot to offer in the hobby. I know that they do, and they absolutely do.
Very true.
But we are just trying to highlight voices that wouldn't necessarily be heard otherwise. And yeah, Josh is with me today to talk a bit about his hobby. How did you get into the hobby? And what kind of games and armies do you play?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, like Annie said, I'm Josh. I go by you might know me by Prince of Biel Tan, like the Eldari craft world. And I have been a hobbyist for since I was a kid. I think I was about in primary school. I basically got into it by seeing another kid at school with a White Dwarf magazine in his school bag, opened it and saw these incredible minis and battles and setup, and that was enough for me. I don't know the number, but it was around the time that the Warhammer 40,000 Fire Warrior PlayStation 2 game came out, because I can't remember, or Dawn of War, I can't remember if that was the cover, but there was like with a towel on a load of skulls, but that was definitely, there was a big ad, definitely, I remember that. But no, so I investigated it. I begrudgingly dragged my parents into my local games workshop, where I had my mind blown by seeing the creative aspect, the diving into these imaginative worlds and creating your own soldiers and heroes and stories, and I've not really looked back since then. I was in and out of the hobby for some years. It's something that I did with childhood friends. Also on a personal note, I remember that my parents were always very fond of supporting hobbies that were like kind of creative, but also that I could do indoors. Like, admittedly, we didn't have the I didn't grow up in like the safest area, so it was better than me being like roaming the streets at night. So they were like, yeah, absolutely, you can roam the imaginary streets of Warhammer 40,000.
Those streets are not safe.
No, they're really not. They're the worst ones. Yeah. As for nowadays, I've collected a good couple of things. Mostly Games Workshop games. Typically for me, I'm like a social kind of like person. So I like to think that like I don't necessarily play games to have fun, but like I have fun playing Warhammer. I like going up and meeting people and rolling dice and showing off painted miniatures, and really creating that spectacle that you can share with another person. And that is there's nothing really quite like it. It's like two imaginations meeting on a battlefield and like swirling and conversing to create something totally unique. It's brilliant. The games that I have kind of focused on recently, definitely, is I love Age of Sigmar, which I know that Annie is also a little bit of a fan of, with her wonderful wonderful Night Haunt, among other things. At the moment, I'm playing Middle-earth strategy battle game. I'm playing Battle Companies, which is their small format kind of skirmish game, which you just take a handful of soldiers. Conversely, with that, another really big passion of mine is the Horus Heresy. And this video is probably it's a good time for the Horus Heresy at the moment.
Yeah.
We're very excited for an upcoming kind of, or at least a kind of renaissance that game is having. It's something that I actually had a lot of success with maintaining quite a big gaming group, trying to find ways for people to get involved. This kind of led me to another passion of mine with gaming, which is accessibility. And some games, the route of accessibility and how to pick up and start them is obvious, and for some it's not so obvious. With the Horus Heresy, it was kind of a little more difficult. So I worked a lot to produce kind of guides of what you could buy very easily, off of the shelves at your local game store, at your local Warhammer store, that was kind of perfect for using in the Heresy. And through that we managed to get quite a lot of people in my area playing it. The books are a labor of love from so many different collaborations and authors, and it's man, if you want to get stuck into something.
Yeah, probably like you, I had some of my fondest, I guess, wargaming memories were playing Horus Heresy. And the first time I went to Warhammer World was to play in a huge Heresy game on one of their big tables, with Titans and things like that. And it's amazing, and it was incredible. How has your experience of racial diversity within the hobby changed since you sort of got into it all those years ago?
This, as you can imagine, this is a bit of a, like I said, bit of a heavier question, but it's important. It's very important that we share our experiences. It's the way we learn about each other at the end of the day. With that being said, I would like to preface this and say that while I'm offered this platform with yourself, Annie, to speak about my experiences as a person of color within this space, I can only definitively speak for myself, as is probably common sense, but I feel like it's worth saying that what goes for, and when people who are from marginalized communities do speak up, they're not necessarily the king or queen of their camp. It's just that we can only we just seek to learn from one another.
Often the case that people in the majority are individuals, but people from the minority are expected to be spokespeople whenever they talk, and it's not right, and not what we're going for here.
It's been a time. I've kind of been fortunate enough to see this from both angles, in that as a kid, coming into the hobby, some years ago, and seeing what diversity was like and representation was like in the hobby at the time versus now, and also not some years ago, when I was at university, I was fortunate enough actually that my part-time job to get me through university was in a game store, and so it meant I got to be on the other side of the curtain for a change. Something I'm really proud of actually, was because you step into those spaces and you're like, okay, cool, I'd love to make this as welcoming as possible. One thing I'd like to kind of talk about is that the representation in the miniatures, and the art, and the visual representations of the games that we see that are they're put forward by companies, and when they're marketing our product, it's been good. It's changed a lot in the past couple of years, and it's definitely in my opinion come forward almost a little more than some community attitudes actually, and that the models might in some cases be kind of outpacing some of the collectors, but I kind of wanted to tackle that through a point, and this is one thing that I've heard my entire like hobby life, and to varying degrees of like me understanding how this question or this point, and it's with lots of hobbyists or staff members at stores being like, these models are unpainted plastic miniatures that you build and you paint, and you can paint them any way you like. And that was something that when I was younger, I definitely thought, well, yeah, that's a good point. Of course I can actually. Yeah, sure. I can paint my miniature any way I want. You can paint things any way you like is very true. In fact, when I was a kid, and I had my Space Marines and my starter set, I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to paint. Like, I'm gonna learn how to paint skin. And I obviously, as a kid, I was like, well, I know my own skin best, so I'm gonna paint that. I'm gonna paint my captain to look like me. I couldn't really find the materials there, and to some people that's a problem that persists to this day. In fact, one of my most asked questions on social media is, how do I paint dark skin, or how do I paint different skin tones, or I'd like to introduce different skin tones into my army. But as a kid, it meant that I didn't know. I asked a staff member, like, well, just use another paint in your starter set. So I did, which ended up with me painting my miniatures with skin made of a paint called snakebite leather. And that's a contrast paint now, but it wasn't back in the day. So I was painting my faces and everything snakebite leather, and I was like, that's not bad. It was, but I was like, that's close. Until I was like, I've nailed it. And then what happens when I get to the leather on the model? What do I do then? Well, if I paint snakebite leather on the leather like it's intended on the product and in the painting, then I've got a leather face or a skin bag. Unless you're playing like some kind of undead army, and that's intentional.
The Night Lords as well.
Oh yeah, Night Lords,
bags.
absolutely. Skin bags, yeah. Yeah, so that one was it was an interesting experience. Then when I had that privilege of being on the other side and seeing new hobbyists of color get interested and learn or want to know how to do this, I was like, right, I'm on it. I'm here for you. I'm so here for you. And what I'll do is, you should grab your paint set, because that's great value, and you can get some paints you need. And we can do this a couple of ways. Like I can teach you how to try and mix something that's like close to your own skin, or whatever, or that of your family members as well. Like, kids are often be like, oh, I'll paint this one to look like mum and dad, or of course I can have a look and show you some other paints that might be close. I was like, this is great. This is everything I would have wanted, until I realized that it meant I was asking more of that kid or that new hobbyist. I was asking them to learn new skills immediately. There was that additional ask of, right, if you want to accurately represent yourself with your paint starter set, there is one flesh tone in it. It might not be yours. So now we're going to have to immediately, you're maybe touching a paintbrush for the first time, and I'm going to have to go at you with like some skills that I might not teach other kids or new hobbyists for a while. And then the thing that really got me thinking about it was, if someone was coming into the hobby and they were like, yeah, I will buy this, but can we go over and have a look at the paints, and you can help me pick out some things that are like a bit different, like maybe more like me. And then I was thinking, right, so there's that financial barrier as well. There's that additional cost that comes with getting into the hobby that I hadn't really factored in. So it was a learning experience even for me. In the current Games Workshop one, there is like a dark brown, like a very, very dark, warm, vibrant, earthy brown called Rhinox hide. And when you compare a paint called Rhinox hide to a paint called pale flesh, it's like, what is that? I'm a new hobbyist. Do I have flesh? Do I have a hide? What is a Rhinox? It all asks a lot of hobbyists. And that's something I've definitely like found to not necessarily have changed too much. Manufacturers do come out with lots of different like tones that we can use for skin, but I really do feel like we are kind of experimenting still with getting access to that like knowledge, tutorials out there. Just as a side note, I would really love one day if I saw a paint line that had a dark skin tone called elf flesh. I would really love that. So that's like that would make my day.
Maybe when they do miniatures for the new Rings of Power show, if they do miniatures for the new Rings of Power show, we'll have elf
or
flesh.
the old world as well. That could be a nice time to sort of readdress that.
Yeah.
But when obviously miniature like painting is like it's an enthusiasm and skill based kind of like hobby. You can really put yourself out there if you're not very say confident with painting, you're giving it a go, you kind of like, oh, it's already might be a bit harder for me to represent myself, and that's never the first step you want to put in any kind of game.
I don't think as a white person I've ever thought that different groups of hobbyists may find it harder with the same stuff, and that's obviously
the same tools.
Now you say it, it's obvious, and I've experienced it in other aspects.
I want to say it wasn't even like it took a long time for me to really think about, and since then it's something that I don't work in a game store anymore, but if I had that kind of I don't know, if I had like any more control over those kinds of things, it's definitely something I would factor into those conversations with people. Yeah, I think that the choice maybe of like paints in the starter set, maybe to be a bit more versatile, or to have maybe like some printed, things maybe on the box or on the back of like, when you get to this, when you get to the skin, then here are some options that we've put in. And if you don't use any of these here, then here's where you could use them, so then you don't end up with, like me as a kid with my like leather skin bag Marines. I think there's a very interesting conversation there. Okay. Absolutely. But yeah, so you can paint them any way you like, but for some people there are a couple of extra steps, whether that's knowledge or cost, or just knowing what's out there.
The other thing, I guess, with if we're just staying on paint them how you like, is that oftentimes the faces that are sculpted are white faces. The features are such that they look Caucasian.
Yeah, absolutely. To the point where it's I don't know, from obviously I can only speak from myself, but I do you do notice like it's very great to see. It's very great to see that when you can see someone who is like, or there's a miniature, or there's a head, or a face that is sculpted, and you're like, I can see similar, I can see myself, I can see myself. It's like I absolutely freaked out. It's not going to really work now because I've got longer hair than when it came out, but I absolutely freaked out when the Black Templars Crusader like neophyte squad came out, and I was like, there is a head in this that I can like probably paint a tiny me.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh man, I was like hooting and hollering from the rooftops
absolutely
about
has
that.
Like for Games Workshop at least, which is in my experiences of miniatures is mostly Games Workshop stuff, as I believe yours is. Come such a long way on this topic, specifically in the last few years. Before probably 2017, you wouldn't have seen any people heads that looked like they weren't white, and now you do.
True. Another thing I wanted to talk about, if we like kind of move away from the painting kind of aspect, is the visibility, like you said, that visibility of people of color within the hobby. And like, once again, like Annie, my experience is vastly Games Workshop, and they're a very good example because they are, they're huge, so they have great range, they have great they have great reach, you'll see their products in bookshops. You'll see them in video game stores and like other specialist hobby stores, as well as their own stores. So you'll see this stuff everywhere. And there has definitely been a really good shift in the visibility of like model kits and art. And how I wanted to examine that is through the lens of Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Specifically how we get our in as an audience. We had a myriad of factions, but our audience in, for the majority of time, was through a faction called the Empire. And the Empire were kind of set in a Western European, like a fantasy Western Europe, ostentatious knights with big like beards and mustaches and, you know, grandiose plumes, and we saw the world through their eyes. We saw the elves as distrustful and off to one side. We saw the undead and the vampires as a threat to us, like, you know, this us of the Empire. We saw the Tomb Kings of like fantasy, like with fantasy North African and Egyptian inspiration as enemies from the Southlands. And we saw Lustria, which was the analogue to South America, as something to be explored, something to be something of bounteous treasures. You don't really have to use a lot of imagination to see some of these themes. The Empire represented a really great, you know, coming on point for a lot of people. A lot of people could see themselves in the Empire. I actually remember a conversation with a friend I've been playing games with since childhood, just earnestly asking, like, Josh, does you know, can you not like really kind of relate to the Empire or not? And I thankfully had, you know, a prop of a fantasy book of the Empire, and like I said, all these grandiose figures. Like I'm pretty sure like they're like overwhelmingly male, exclusively white, depicted in the art. And I said, you know, that this is a brilliant image of heroes, and you, like, you know, you as in referring to my friend who's white British, was like, can see yourself as any one of them. All of them could be you in a different timeline or in a fantasy world, but from my perspective, none of them can be me. Then we fast forward a little bit to Age of Sigmar. This world is built from the ground up. I think it was 2015. It's made no more of like a world that's an analog to our world. It's now realms of magic, realms of primordial energy that shape spiring like spires and cliffs and deep like pits and undergrowths. It's incredibly high fantasy. Our protagonist faction here, our inn, is through the Stormcast Eternals, a range I'm a massive fan of. We are talking superhuman giants, lightning and thunder and like cosmic energy coursing through their veins, and they represent the reforged souls of people who were good and pure, or, you know, who always tried to, you know, like do their best in life, because, you know, you can teach anyone how to be a soldier, but you can't teach, you know, you can't teach how to be a hero. That's Stormcast Eternals, you know, initially kind of all helmeted, masculine presenting on their first release. Then we kind of moved a little bit forward into, we had feminine presenting models as well in their second, I think it was around the second edition.
The second edition, the Sequitors and the Evocators were the first.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if they were the first, because we had like maybe a couple of heroes before that who were winning.
Oh yeah.
But they were the first, I believe, kit that had both.
They were definitely the ones that were at the forefront. You know, they were the ones that you would see if you went into a store.
And the second edition Age of Sigmar core book had a female Stormcast on the front, which was amazing.
Oh my god, yeah. She had the sick tattoos like over her. I remember that one actually. Yeah, that was incredible. Our heroes have now changed. They can look like any of us. This in itself is a massive. It's a massive win. It's a massive change, and that alone is it goes a long way. So if you refer back to the you can pin it how you like, we are now seeing masculine and feminine presenting Stormcast Eternals with varying degrees. We are seeing, like you mentioned earlier, Annie, we're seeing faces sculpted with like the hallmarks of different ethnicities. The visibility kind of hits another level with Stormcast Eternals. One of my favorite, like probably might be my favorite character, I'll say it, yeah, it's coming, is the Lord Commander of the Hammers of Sigmar, man like Bastian Carthalos. And
he's the biggest deal Stormcast, right? Like,
yes,
up there.
He is.
He's basically the Gilliman of the Stormcast.
He is, and he's a black man. And like, it's not you can paint it how you like. It's that he has we share a nose, we share lips. We don't share the lightning eyes, unfortunately. But that's more than I have shared with 99% of the rest of the characters in Warhammer, and that has been a spectacular change. So yeah, I feel like that's why I really wanted to celebrate, is that things have come along, and now, and it's not even like you have to find it, it's right there for you. It's right there at the front. And I'm incredibly confident and excited in the future of these worlds, and seeing where they take us and who they show us, because someone's gonna look in the mirror and they're gonna be like, you know what, they're gonna show us someone that looks a lot like me.
I'm so glad we talked about this, because it is the overriding impression I have of particularly the third edition of Age of Sigmar, is how much better they've got it. They did it fairly poorly first time, get in there second time, and then
tentative, yeah.
And then third edition, they got it. Like the two mascots of the Stormcast Eternals now are Bastian Carthos and Yandestra, the whatever spear.
Absolutely.
So it's a black man and a woman, which just wouldn't have happened 5 years ago.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, it's it'd have been two different armies, or where like for example, a unit of women would have been like a kind of feature or a clique to differentiate an army, and like, oh, that's interesting. There's a unit of that's all women.
Yeah, the Escher gang, Sisters of Silence.
The witch elves, like that kind of stuff.
But now,
this is excuse me. This is an interesting one, because I probably wanted to like chat a little bit about what is known as like the like kind of the difference in in visibility of content creators. It's kind of referred to in other spaces as equal versus equitable treatment, which, once again, for the folks at home, equal treatment is something that's like it was a really good thing for a long time. It was touted as like this is what we should do. An example of this back in the years gone was someone saying, I don't see color, I just see you, in very good spirits. That's a really like there was nothing but positivity there, and nothing but acceptance there. And for a long time that was great. But there's a lot of kind of issues that highlights, where by not seeing the differences between people, you kind of overlooking a lot of the things that make them them, whether that be things that societal expectations, whether that be how comfortable they feel in certain spaces. An equitable treatment kind of looks to identify, or at least celebrate those differences, and kind of treat people accordingly so that they all feel comfortable, and that equal treatment can kind of be something that's achieved later down the line. With that being said, this interview is a brilliant example. I'm a black hobbyist, and I'm being interviewed by a woman, which is something I might struggle to find on YouTube in general, and that's great, in that we can kind of give ourselves this room to talk, and share our experiences. And Annie's doing you're doing a really great thing by helping us share our stories. Now with kind of equitable, treatment, you might maybe say, well, maybe like we said, there's been a lot of great contribution in the hobby over the year, but it might be great for us to, maybe in the future be on an interview somewhere where we're talking about, like our inspirations as hobbyists, our armies, without kind of like this, but here's what I've had to go through, or here's how I've had to express myself, and that's being shared with like a wide audience who then might be able to, relate. I've been like contacted by people who have messaged me and said, I'm the only person of color in my game group, and no, I've kind of, I've felt away, or I've come to terms with like some things, but it's just nice to see, it's nice to see someone else, it's nice to feel like, oh yeah, I'm not the only person. That's great, So with a bit more like, say platforming, and we are seeing that now. We are seeing obviously you do incredible work as a community painter, Annie, and we are seeing like a lot more women than we would have seen in recent years be kind of showcased as kind of community leaders, and that visibility does a lot for other people, just to see people like yourself, painting literally on the Warhammer community, and say, these are, this is my work. It's so someone can see themselves and be like, maybe I can do that one day. It would be really great to see a little more of that. So I would look to people who are like, say if you're writing an article, or if you're holding an event, or if you really want to try and reach that audience, let's look at maybe trying to reach all of that audience. Let's see if our content is like almost culturally sound, and think, right, are we making something that's necessarily a representative of our audience? Because we do exist, we're listening to the same podcasts, we're watching the same videos, and it would be overwhelming just to see a bit more of that at game stores, at like on a local level, like in your community. I feel like what could be kind of helpful is just that almost kind of checking yourself, before you wreck yourself, and that can be kind of to do with things like the lore and background. I'd like maybe to say, hey, well, maybe in the lore, this army is depicted as, traditionally, this kind of, this demographic, but you don't necessarily want to use that as a rule to, say, oh well, why did you do this? And then that onus is once again on the hobbyist. I've had it like from my own personal experience, where I used to, for Horus Heresy, I used to collect space wolves. I read the I think it's the Ragnar Blackman novels, and I was reading about Fenris, and the variety of climates on Fenris, and there were dark-skinned people in the novels, and I was like, I had no idea. I'm gonna do this. So I painted. I was like, these space wolves are derived from this continent, and I'm gonna paint dark-skinned space wolves. Did not go down well at all in some spaces online. I was like, oh my god. Because to some people that's just not what their idea of a space wolf looks like. And it's at that point that I would be like, okay, so this is, we're two people that have been inspired by the same background. Let's not use it as like a, kind of like a barrier to be like, this is how I see it. Why do you see it differently? Why the law's on my side. The law is brilliant. It's inspirational and it drives us. But kind of the second it gets in the way of someone else's creativity, or probably when I'd be like, you might want to dial it back a little bit. Yeah. In
your ideal world, what does the future of this hobby look like?
So in my ideal world, I think that the future of hobby probably looks probably a little bit like us, you know. I'd like to see. I'd just like to see a myriad of contribution of people from all backgrounds. I'd love to see, like, I don't know if this will do it anymore, but I'd like to see like Warhammer heroes, just like painters out there or visible hobbyists that have like that, you know, that have all the range and diversity and experience, because it's just going to make the hobby better. And when, you know, we start seeing like publications penned by like people of color or different genders, you're going to just see that impact in the hobby. You're going to see so many cool heroes. You're going to see so many cool factions that are inspired by someone's culture, because they want to say, right, I know my background really well, and I think that would make a great translation into a miniature format. I'd like to see more faces in game groups. I'd like to roll dice against like more people of color, more people of women and marginalized genders, and because it's just going to make the hobby that was already great even better, because now we've got everyone pitching in.
There's no way that it goes back now. It's too much. We're too many people, and we're too involved.
We're too loud. They've put us in the spotlight, and sometimes, and now it's like, okay, well, oh god, we're gonna have to do some stuff now. Things are gonna be asked of us.
Yeah, I make a pointed like gesture, I guess, to follow any woman who I see on Twitter. If I ever see a thing,
I'm the same
by
with the brothers and sisters, yeah.
Yeah, if I ever see a thing by a woman in Warhammer, I just click follow straight away, and it's getting like daily is a new person, right? Yeah. Which is incredible.
Because, and it's great, and other people need to see that, you know, like I was saying, it would, you know, there'd be the joke that there's the case that are you know, if you go, if there's a woman in a game store, like, are you buying these for your partner, your boyfriend, you know, your brother, your dad, and you're like, no, they're for me, and you're like, and you know, that's you know, that was a novelty, and
I want to go into a game store and someone says, what are you painting? And I say, oh no, these are for my boyfriend.
You want to choose violence at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even have a boyfriend.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming onto this thing.
Oh, Annie, I have had a blast. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to have had the space to like talk about my experiences. I'm hoping that if anyone, you know, like resonates with this, either as someone who is like, you know, oh, I'm interested in learning more about, you know, the people at my game store, or I'm the only person of color at my game store too. Remember that, you know, someone's got to be the first. By the way, you can do it.